Salutations, bonjour, labdien, konnichiwa are the various greetings you may wish to gift and educate me and the audience with. Right back to the front on this fine day, and it promises to be satisfactory, without any fixing it. I jest, of course. Plenty of fix-it property will be stolen. On today's foray, we delve into finishing Gleba and getting off to Vulcanus, and subsequently finishing Vulcanus. It's pretty short, all things considered, but don't let that deceive you. Short usually means harder. The base, since last time, has hit a growth spurt, but don't let that fool you either. It isn't even its final form. This is the true starter base stage, where everything is generally in the right place, but the real problem is figuring out routing, and how to condense the machines all together. Gleba wants you to build compact. Large stretches of belt is for metal and fully realized products. None of that intermediary nonsense. Spoilage after spoilage, everything on these belts must be used. If not, it must burn. By fire be purged, as an ancient master would say. Lubricant, iron and copper, carbon and its activated brother, rocket fuel, bioflux, all the necessary step towards the cocoon of the real base. The way these things work is that you have 4 stages: theory, hypothetical, motion, and object in motion. I will not elaborate, this is a brain squeezer for you to unravel. The main bus is here, and curving about harshly at a 90-degree angle, I think. The cliff is in my way. Curse you, raised elevation, haunting me since 1998 with your mischance. A little more for sticks and for rails. Wait, rails? And who are we transporting? Mass fluids? Long-distance agriculture? Actually, yes, long-distance agriculture. I want to use trains, because further down the line, relying on long belt monstrosities are not viable, sad to say. That, and with how Talandar included deep-sea portions to encourage boat usage, he did not account for me being lazy and brute-forcing my way past the intended method of play. But I'm sure he's gonna figure something out. That bell budgie never expects. The 7,561 belt line. I'm not joking, by the way. That is the longest belt line I've ever used, because I did a no trains run by myself. It was intriguing to say the least. This is your reminder that even planets you'll forget about need automated supplies. You have to give those robots something to do, the lazy bums. Sulfur is needed for sulfuric acid, because how do we get blue? Melting blue things, obviously. More spoilage required and some bioflux to mix together, and like that, crystal and ready to be melted into a slurry in a hazardous chemical bath. Lucky I have a gas mask. I was going to expand green circuits. I then realized all the copper wire I was making was insufficient for my purposes, reduced due to the lack of space. Damn you, elevation! Again? So I move it and make the last bit of bioflux I can squeeze out. It'll be off in terms of spoilage, but it'll be close enough to the rocket itself. Additional green circuits are also here, but I gotta start thinking in hundreds and potentially thousands. Next comes red. Spot the obvious problem with this beacon, and no, it isn't the production rate. That's right, I can't feed all the assemblers because of the beacons. I'll have to redesign that later. Anywho, the problem's solved, onto blue circuits, and I can reuse the design because I don't need molten plastic, I need sulfuric acid. Blue chips single-handedly skyrocket green chip demand, which in turn causes a knock-on effect. You can understand the drill. It digs. Now onto those nefarious eggs. Routing the bioflux through the belts is a neat idea. It gives me an even more, it's a poor design, and it breaks later. The less said about it, the better. Remember what I said about burning off the excess? This is what I meant. Nowhere else to go, it's better as heat. Even then, I'll have to uproot this later. Temporary solutions are always so drab. I forgot the bulk inserters needed red in circuits. That's an easy fix. Automating whatever you need to make more automation is the best practice you can get in early. A little bit of bioflux, some pentapod eggs, and like that, agricultural smoothie ready to be shipped off? Well, not totally ready, I'd need a rocket for that. And one of those rocket parts that is required has changed from the standard low-density structure to carbon fiber. Carbon fiber itself is simple. Carbon, Umico mash, and only made in a biochamber. This bit of jury-reading is disgusting. The less said about my laziness, the better. It is also purple when processing. Imported parts, silo-crafted, placed down, alongside a fully speed-moduled beacon. A reminder that I am using a mod called Beacon Rebalance. I use it because I do not like spamming beacons as I find it ugly and, in my opinion, ruins visual clarity. This isn't included in Ships of Fools, it's an outside mod for my preference, as too is my usage of another mod called Big Brother. I appreciate what Talandar is going with the lighthouse and radars, serving two different functions, one to explore, one to keep a constant bird-eyes view. But I have a whole list of mods that I want to go through in future, and waiting around for map scans isn't fun nor interesting to me. That is all. Back to the program. The star map is simple, but it gets the point across, and like that, science is now shipping, and bada bing, research is being done. Boom puff methodology, reduction in explosion chance. Stack inserter. The stack inserter, owing to its name, can stack items higher on a belt. However, the drawback is that it needs a full stack to do so, and that is affected by the hand size research, basically how much it can carry, and belt stacking research itself. Easy fixes for myself. It is also Gleba's incredible technology besides the biochamber. The planet of excess grants you the ability to produce a lot more. It's like poetry. Sometimes it does just rhyme for no apparent reason. The real amusement comes from this, an infinite research that scales up bacteria productivity. This will be a tool that helps us much later, but rest assured, it is disastrous for the mid-game, for all the right reasons, and those who know. Rocket turret is ready, and so is the first belt capacity upgrade for that devious scheme I have plotted. The rocket turret is simple. It has a long range, but it has a dead zone where it cannot fire. You get big damage and area damage later on, but it comes at the cost of needing to position it properly. With said turret, I can now start really ramping up Gleba's production as I no longer have to cower away from pentapods. Another level of boom puff explosion chance reduction. Researching the route to Vulcanus itself is also trivial, and that'll be a nice and easy stop. The production of explosives and the Tier 3 efficiency module in a neat bundle. Delicious. I will say, a great flaw is present within this little defensive design, and that is not accounting for the stompers. The flaw itself, not enough damage output. I'll have to grind a few levels of explosive damage research to really make it shine. I could also solve it by increasing the overall width and adding about 4 more rocket turrets roughly, but spamming the design and having the attack range overlap will fix that deficiency somewhat. Oh yes, and the crane diesel stack inserter finishes up as well. I dream of a base, a strong rail from which I can transport fresh produce, from the furthest reaches of this swamp to a behemoth of a processing line, but I am foiled by cliffs and a moderate puddle of water. So much for that dream. Boom puff disposal is simple. Burn whatever isn't processed for the gas. The circuit logic, as well, is also simple. It's a timer. If it is more than X, the bulk inserter will grab it. If not, it is disabled. The same goes for the belt. Whatever loops gets reprocessed until nothing remains. It runs on a clock. There was going to be a longer stretch of glebbing out here, but Gleba needs a bit of time to cool off. So you know what that means? Up into the sky and out into the stars. Vulcanus calls. It's not because I want to rush interstellar logistics and import gold. Not that. Also, ignore the thrusters. I forgot to fuel them, and, where we're going, we won't need that pesky ethanol all that much anymore when we have oxidizer proper. And propellant too. As you can see, Vulcanus contains black, gray, orange, and yellow. The sad reality has come to pass. This planet has nothing but metal on it, and nothing else, save all the metallurgy we can perform with it. First, however, a sampling of all the rocks to determine what is present within the soil. Coal is prospecting. Next comes piping up and putting derricks on the sulfuric veins to pump out those pockets of acid. It'll be the key to making steam. What for? Power. But in this case, water and agriculture. Agriculture on Vulcanus. Not a green thing in sight, you observe. I'm afraid it gets a lot worse. The coal a factorio player would normally be used to is gone, so therein comes the question. How do we get coal? Well, you see, we need it for heavy oil. Why? That's simple. Coal synthesis. A few heart attacks may occur. Rest assured, it still gets worse. Coal synthesis is legendarily bad and is only used in the late game for very good reason. Ridiculously so, in its bad state, and its main use is, as repeated, validated by a later game building, the cryogenic plant. Unfortunately, I am still very far off from that, so I only have chemical plants. Why is this bad? Because a 0.5 coal per second would make the entire heavy oil ratio on Vulcanus a 4 chemical plant to 1 refinery. This could be fine if it were not for the rocket part recipe. To spoil you, it is 100 oil per second needed to make the parts. Though, I will say, this has changed to 50 heavy oil per second as of writing. It was recently changed, so the pain is now reduced. You can thank me and the other people who playtest this for that. Speaking of, in fairness to Talandar, he has reduced the agony as of writing. They are busy porting most of their mods at the current moment to the latest version of Factorio, that being 2.1. And whilst Ship of Fools has thus far been painless and pretty stable, I have to remind you, or rather inform you, that this mod is in what can generally be considered a late alpha stage, to put it simply. A lot of things will change in future and become harder or easier, and whilst I've been alright thus far, if you are in the future watching this, the mod pack may change depending on, time progressing and all that. However, moving forward, I made a good swath of landmines. Why did I do this? Big game hunting, of course. Vulcanus has a unique species of worm, the Demolisher. It is territorial and hates anything that you place within its home. Understandable. However, it fails to account that I am a humble expansionist, and thus it should have expected the isolationism to fall apart. So how about that carbon? The humble carbo nut is the solution. That's right, baby. We are back to farming, and back in the fucking building again. The hard part, getting a nice area to place down agriculture and start mass production, because believe you me, will we need it for basic oil demands. Not to mention the other change. Like Gleba before, we start off simple, assemblers into... it needs steam to soften the shell so that we can extract the carbon present within. The seeds to repropagate... Space is the secondary difficulty increase, I see. Belt up my acid neutralization. Throw a few bits of calcite into the neutralizing process to get a buffer of steam. It makes 2,000 steam per second, and that is more than enough for the current moment. Now comes something strange, and not often seen. The ducts mod. Originally a band-aid on the old 1.0 fluid system for Factorio, it is now an alternative pipe trading an increased size for better overall fluid transport over long distances. It originates from Factorio 2, if my memory serves me well. If not, correct me as needed. It also comes as a necessary requirement for something else. Though I need to start making coal, and for that, a small but dependable beaconed classic. Look at that. Oh, good lord, the production is raw and spoiled. Get me the kitchen nightmare stinger. I'm getting side-eyed and feeling sorry for myself. The next change, lubricant, which only exacerbates the oil problem more because that purple chunk known as tungsten also requires a special rig, a drilling rig. And it gives us access to the two best buildings in all of space age. The aptly mentioned, or rather before mentioned, big mining drill and foundry. For that, however, we need to process the tungsten I gathered earlier from the rocks and melt them into triangles, otherwise identified as tungsten carbide. I brought some lubricant with me because despite what it may seem, Vulcanus, at least in Ships of Fools, is not a planet that is going to export much else besides science, belts, and its requisite relegated planet-locked buildings. Of which, one of those is the Foundry. And those familiar with this behemoth, now with 100% more width, and is now 10-hour video essayist free. What can this Foundry do and not do? Metallurgy, or casting. It can also process carbo nuts better. Increased production is always a must in space age. The more, the better. The problem, however, is that foundries are now burners. What does that mean? See, it once used electricity oh so long ago. Now it consumes burnable fuel in order to run. Thankfully, we have carbon. Carbon is a burnable source of fuel. However, that eats into making coal and oil. Thus, you can see the cycle has been established. Thankfully, the old excavators come in useful for making some more farmland for these carbo nuts. Now that is some proper production, meant for a factory. I was going to go through the whole process. I decided to save time and just import the electric motors. I have the supplies. I can make the base and bounce to another world. A little bit of molten metal, red chips, carbide, and electric motors, and like that, the big drill, powered by electricity. Incredible. As you can see, the foundry is larger than usual, and that means small pipes cannot transport the molten metal, so ducts are required. Problem in that, ducts are big. Now, molten metal is simple. Lava in alongside calcite, and it'll spit out that bright gooey orange, or copper and iron. The benefit to the foundry is that you can thrust vast quantities of metal over longer distances and set up shop pretty much anywhere you want. Also, trains with fluid wagons opens up many possibilities. Right now, however, I am more concerned with making a pasteable blueprint. I've relegated Vulcanus in the back of my mind as a buffer science planet. Forgive that sin, and I want to go to Areg and get better solar and belts, not to mention more cool buildings. The big mining drill, capable of using electricity and with the benefit of a reduced drain on resources, 50%, effectively increasing the overall value of any ore patch, and it's also reasonably fast to boot. What is there not to love? Abysmal coal setup, but it's fine for now. I just need enough metallurgy science to get coal liquefaction, then it'll be more tolerable. Whilst you weren't real, I was busy killing some more worms for my devious schemes, and that is planning the starter base, which will continue to persist for some time given the, issue of lava lakes? The cliffs also bug me, but we can fix that later. If you want to know where Foundation is, it is down in the tech tree and locked behind... 18 sciences, all from different worlds. I'll have gun damage research 27 by the time I research this. I tell you what. Oh, this is horrid. That's so much lubricant, man. Vulcanus reworks or tweaking go one of two ways. Absolute travesty or delaying the inevitable. You'll see why when I do my guide to vanilla factorio. Carbide setup. I just swapped around recipes from the carbo nuts and ooh boy, that rate hurts to look at. Though all this complaining and no science? Where is it? There it is. Fanza orange over here is simple. One of the prerequisites is tungsten plate. More tungsten and some molten iron to help strengthen it in the mold. Viola. And with it, coal liquefaction. is soon within my grasp. Morale is so low I yell at a worm. That I'm going to keep as a pet to boost my grasp on reality. Shut up! Launchpad set. Ingredients for its supply imported. Time to ship off Fanta Orange. Though power is now a bit of a problem with all the beacons about, so quick fix with a bunch of turbines. A cool thing added to Factorio is pinning. Alt plus right click, if memory serves, onto a building and you'll have a bird's eye view ready to check if everything is alright. The use case itself is rare, but when it is necessary, in my case, checking when Pelagos has problems, it allows me to save it from dying for the 27th time. Yes, I have been keeping count. I am suffering from my poor planning. We bowl, we cope, regardless. What is also balling is my stocks of defensive resources, because the pentapods have taken great offense of my plundering of the natural resources, and every now and then they destroy a few dozen rails and some other defenses, but it gets built back. More nuisance than problem. Now onto the metallurgic science. Just tungsten plate, carbide, and a little bit of copper to electrify the bonds, and thus the next batch of research can commence. Down the hatch to the Pelagosian front. Liquefaction for coal, asteroid reprocessing, because the first round wasn't enough. Cliff explosives, self-explanatory. They go boom and elevation is no longer any concern. Advanced asteroid processing, because 1 wasn't enough, 2 was even, but 3 is really for the oddballs in us all. The thruster, powered by normal oxidizer and propellant instead of pure ethanol. No more drunk interstellar driving. Company outlawed it. Artillery, because I hate bugs, and I'm getting persistently aggravated at the ankle biting. Arig, the sand planet, full of, well, sand. Coarse, rough, and with a filmography and extended universe that people assure me is better than bread. Greenbelts for more production. Hard stuck to Vulcanus, but worth it for the wait, until Arig. Then they fall apart, and to cap it off, engine unit casting. Don't get excited, it needs activated carbon still. But with that, this portion of Ships of Fools must conclude. When next you return, we will descend down to Arig, a horrid, sandy place, where I will be forced to figure everything out without the usual boon of shipping and resources, until I make the research to figure it out. Subscription is asked if you truly enjoyed the performance and wish to see more. The bell is also there. Like it whilst you're at it, since the snack bar is so near. Comment and leave your feedback, as you deem fit. We will be increasing our employees' minimum wage based on it. All the links for additional bits and bobs, my web novel, now on Wattpad and Royal Road. The links in the description. A Discord and Patreon for monetary support if you so choose. $1 or $3, your choice of poison, cowboy. But even if none of that interests you, and it is your first time here or the last to peruse my wares, know that you are thanked for giving me a shot. And I wish you well, as always. Your patronage is welcomed. Spasiba, bratan.